Hello, I'm Stan Contos from Solve Results. Welcome to Breakfast at the Next Level. I encourage you to jot down 3 key points that will help take your life or business to the next level. So relax and enjoy.
Hey, welcome back. Fantastic to see so much good fellowship and networking happening. I'm about to introduce Stan Contos now. Stan's an executive chairman and co-founder of the Star Pharmacy Group. He's also director and co-founder of Soul Results. He's a business and property entrepreneur. He's an author. He's got his book at the back there if you're interested in picking that up as well. He's a motivational speaker and as well as a peak performance coach. Stan's an authority on leadership and peak life performance, and he's considered one's ultimate life coach. He's happily married to Aranya with 3 kids as well. And without further ado, please welcome Stan Contos.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Sam.
How are we? Great to see you all. Welcome to Breakfast at the Next Level. Welcome to our topic, creating world-class business success. And great to have Bob this morning. I hope you finish inspired. I hope that you hear something that you haven't heard before, because all it takes is one new thing to change your business, change your life. And I hope that we begin to see things in a new way. I met Bob years ago in what's called TEC. TEC is the Executive Connection. It's a CEO forum, and that's where I met Bob. And always enjoyed his wisdoms and his incredible knowledge. But before we begin, I'd like to start with something funny. I've got my research analyst, my daughter. She finds me good jokes. So I'd like to share with you a couple of really good jokes. And please excuse the blonde women in the room. There's 3 women, a blonde, a brunette and a redhead. And they're stranded on an island. The brunette looked over the water to the mainland and she reckons it's about 20 k's. So she announces she's going to try and swim back. After swimming 5 kilometres, the brunette begins to get tired, but she's determined and wants to keep going. Unfortunately, around that 10k mark, she gets really exhausted and drowns. The redhead, stronger than the brunette, decided to give it a try. Getting out about 10 k's, she too begins to get tired, but just like the brunette, she's determined to keep going with only 5 k's from the mainland. She gets tired, exhausted, and drowns. Now, the blonde, always been the strongest of the 3, so she goes out, she can see how far the redhead had gotten, and she knew she's got a good choice of making it. So the blonde swims from the island and was making it in really good time. She passes 10 k's easy. However, when she goes to 15, she gets really tired. But she keeps going. And she gets to 19 k's, and she can see the mainland and in sight, and she realises she just can't go on. So she swims back. I've also got a joke that my son shared with me. And he goes, there's these 2 boys in class, they're grade 6s, they're 2 boys in class. One's a smart kid, he's always getting good grades. And one is known as the not so smart kid. Anyway, they both get 9 out of 10. And the teacher's just going, how did that happen? I know the smart kid, but how did he get 9 out of 10? So she goes through the tests, and there's 10 questions and a mark for each. The smart kid, question 10, writes, I ran out of time. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer. The other child, the not so smart, writes number 10, I don't know either. So anyway, the purpose for those new people in this morning, welcome. The purpose of Breakfast at the Next Level is to transform our thinking, change the way we think, to inspire us, motivate us, and to educate us in an area of life or business. And I want to begin with this great wisdom. It's actually biblical wisdom. There's master and 3 servants. There's his master, and he gives these talents. He gives 5 talents to one servant, 2 talents to another, and 1 talent to the third. And he goes, I want you to go and multiply these and work on them. And so years later, the master comes back, and the guy who had the 5 talents is say, a measure of wealth. And so the guy with the 5 talents goes, Master, I've done really well, I've doubled it. I've got 10. He goes, well done, that's impressive. I'm very proud of it. The guy with the 2 increases, goes to 3, and he goes, well done, that's a good effort, you've done very well. And the third guy who had 1 talent, he goes, I was really worried about it. I didn't want to lose it, so I buried it in safety, and I've got it here. Here it is, I've kept it safe. And the master goes, that's not what I wanted. I wanted you to multiply. And he took it away and goes, look, give it back. And he gives it to the guy with 10. And he goes, for those that don't have, even what they have, they're going to lose. But those that have, they're going to get more. It's a law of abundance. So in business, the ones who go and multiply and grow and put effort are the ones that are going to get the rewards. And the ones that sit around doing nothing are going to lose that which they have. And I want to commend Bob because he started off taking one solid business and multiplying it into almost 100 around the country. What a sensational story of multiplying talents. There's a perception exercise that I'd like to share. And for those of us that have seen it, please don't give the answer away. However, perception is reality. Perception is reality in business and life. And so we have a picture. Can we see that picture? Of the old lady. Where's the old lady, Tash? We've got the old one. There. All right, we've got a picture of an old lady. Everyone can see that? See an old lady there? Okay. We also now have a picture of a young lady. Can we see the young lady? That's what the young one touches. It is. Okay. All right, third picture. Okay. The final picture is a composite. Who can see the old lady? Put your hand up. Who sees the old? Who sees the young lady? Okay. For those of you that see one of them, see if you can see the other. Because the other one's there. Right? So for example, if you see the old lady, if you change the way you look at it, you can see the young lady. Once you can see a different perception of anything, you can change your results. So, thank you, Tash. Once you can see a new way, there's no turning back. Because perceptions change when you read a good book. Perceptions change when you get an education. Perceptions change when you go to a seminar. Perceptions change when you meet new people. And that change changes all your results. So hopefully, by interviewing Bob this morning, someone who's created a massive perception change in what's possible in business will change our thinking as well. Manuel mentioned a book, and this is an old tattered copy of The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. And I remember reading this book many, many years ago. And the principles of this book are based on great thinkers. Okay? They're based on people like the prophet David, who wrote, "As one thinketh in his heart, so he shall become." Minds like Emerson, who said, "Great men are those where they know that their thoughts rule the world." It's based on people like Milton, where the mind is its own place and in itself can create a heaven out of hell or a hell out of heaven. It's based on minds like Shakespeare. There's nothing good or bad, only thinking makes it so. And it's based on minds like Disraeli, who said, "Life is too short to be little." So the book basically is about think big and you'll live big. You'll live big in happiness, you'll live big in accomplishments, big in income, big in friends, and big in respect. One of the people that I've always had a lot of respect for is the late Jim Rohn, and I chose to share some of Jim Rohn's wisdoms because Bob chose Jim Rohn years ago as one of his teachers in personal development, and I know Bob even sent his kids over the years. Jim Rohn passed away a few years ago at the age of 83, but he was an incredible teacher, and he came up with some amazing wisdoms. And I want to share some of those wisdom with you from Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn used to say, learning is the beginning of wealth. Learning is the beginning of health. Learning is the beginning of spirituality. Searching and learning is where this miracle process happens. He used to say, the book you don't read is the one that won't help you. He used to say, if someone is going down the wrong road, they don't need motivation to speed them up. They need education to turn them around. He'd say, miss a meal if you have to, but never miss reading a book. He said, nourish your mind like you nourish your body. The mind cannot survive on junk food. And things like ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is poverty. Ignorance is devastation. Ignorance is tragedy. Ignorance is illness. Everything stems from ignorance. And so we must always keep educating ourselves. He used to have wisdoms on success and business as well. He used to say that success is not something you pursue, it's something you attract by the person you become. He used to say success is not so much as what we have, it's more of what we are. He'd say the greatest form of maturity is at harvest time. In other words, when you reap from your hard work. That is when you must learn to reap without complaint if the amounts are small, and reap without apology if the amounts are big. He'd say his father taught him to always do more than you get paid for, because that's the investment in your future. You should always do more. You should never do what you get paid for. You should always do more. He'd say, don't let your career make something for you. Let it make something of you. He'd say, if you make a sale, you make a living, but if you make an investment of time in customers and service, you make a fortune. And one of my favourite ones that he used to say, he'd say, work harder on yourself than you do on your job, and then you will always be more successful. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. So I've always believed and experienced that personal development goes with business success. It always goes. The more you develop your mind, the greater is your business success. Over the weekend, I was at my mum's on Sunday, and we caught up with my brother-in-law, and he was sharing with me a story. And he goes, Chris goes, I used to go to this deli, because I'm on the road, I drive by, and I used to specifically go into this deli. It was a small deli, but it had these great little gourmet foods. It had these little gourmet, these Greek gourmet cakes and these little gourmet pies and so forth. Anyway, it was really, really good niching in this just general deli, convenience store. However, the business was bought out. Somebody bought it. They were selling a small business, $80,000. And very soon after, they started getting rid of these ranges. It goes too hard to source these things. Let's just buy the regular things from the wholesaler. So they stopped making these little niche things. And so he stopped going there. So he spoke to them. He somehow found someone who knew the person. He goes, their turnover dropped. It was $6,500 a week, and they were taking home $100,000 a year, right, as their profit. It dropped to $3,500 a week within months. And he went to the point where he was just covering his rent and costs. And then they thought, we better sell this. And so they got offered $25,000, they paid $80,000, and they said, no, it's worth much more than that. And they let it go a few more months, and they ended up selling it for $8,000. Someone walks in, guts it out, creates a cafe, and succeeds. So the message here is people went into business with no education, no knowledge, no understanding about niche marketing, customer service, marketing, transitioning a business. And so not only did they lose their capital, but they had to work it for nothing for like a year, so they lost all their income for that year as well. And on top of that, if they'd followed some basic principles in transitioning and growing a business, at the end of that year, not only would they have made an income, but they would have made maybe some capital in their business. So the total loss is more like nearly $200,000 from ignorance. So, very important for us, there's many business people in the room here, people that are in business, or about to get in business, or run a business. So important for us to keep educated all the time and keep increasing our levels of understanding. And I always say, wouldn't it be great to be able to realise the amazing power of our mind? You see, we're given this tool that we can create a blessing in our environment, or we can create problems, okay? All because of the way we think. If we could all realise the power of reading inspirational and educational books, as well as being educated in programs. Wouldn't it be great if we could invest money into one of the greatest investments and the greatest returns you'll ever get? You know what that is? Yourself. Yeah, that is the greatest return you'll ever get. And wouldn't it be great to dream big, have big dreams, and then have an unwavering faith and do whatever it takes to educate yourself to achieve it? So I'm going to bring up Bob in a moment, but I want to share a few points about Bob. Bob Beaumont was born and raised in South Australia, so he's a proud South Aussie. And despite his wide interests around the country, he's still based here in SA. He's married to Sue, he's got 2 kids and 2 grandkids, one recent new one. Now Bob wants me to share, he's got an active Christian life. He was raised in Glenelg Church of Christ. He was involved with Christian Endeavour, Boys Brigade, and the very active youth group. And on the leadership, he was in the Bellevue Heights Baptist Church, which became the Blackwood Hills Baptist Church, for over 35 years. And he's been in other organisations like Campus Life, Bible College of SA, and many others. Now, at 18 years, Bob joins his dad in business, selling tiles to the building trade, as well as other wholesaling goods. His job was warehouse and delivery, and he later went into other things like sales, ranging, buying, and management. He went on to study marketing at the SAIT, the South Australian Institute of Technology. That's what it was called when I went there too. Now it's called UniSA, much more trendy name. In 1978, he became general manager of Beaumont Tiles. And now he's grown it to multiple locations, both here in South Australia and interstate, and is now by far the largest in the industry, with nearly 100 outlets comprising about half of them are company-owned and the other half franchises, so as well as extensive trade operations in South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland. Bob employs over 450 people, and that's excluding the ones in the franchises as well. And they sell 70 containers of tiles every week. Can you imagine? 70 containers. He's still actively involved in business. Bob has always got these witty little comments that I love. He says, "I couldn't think of anything more boring than retirement." Can I ask you please to make welcome Bob Beaumont? Welcome, Bob. Good to have you here. Good to have you this morning. You didn't realise so many people wake up so early in the morning. I thought we've got a chair there. Oh, yes, good.
Yes.
Good. And I suppose it's always good to start at the beginning, whatever the beginning is. So how did it all start, Bob? How did it all start for you in business?
It's great to be here this morning, Stan. Thanks for the welcome. I feel very humbled by all the welcome. How to start? Well, I probably should say how my dad started in business, and then I joined him. My dad was the ultimate entrepreneur. You know, he'd take the most incredible, amazing risks, and a few of his dealings ended up with him having a few blocks of land around where our house was at Glengarry, which he gradually sold off to fund his little import business that he had. And when it came time to sell the block next door, he decided to put a house on that block rather than to just sell the block of land. And he was talking to the builder, and the builder said, "Oh, there's no tiles available, no decent tiles available." And Dad said, "Look, I've got an import licence, which you needed at that stage." And so he said, "I'll bring some in." So, you know, he without doing any market research or anything like that, went and bought a couple of 1,000 square metres, didn't have a shop, didn't have a market, didn't have anything. This is what you call market research. And he bought these and put them in the back shed of our family home and went out to try and sell them. Couldn't sell them to the local merchants. And so he started to sell to builders and tilers and what have you. And gradually built up from there to a little converted cottage in Wright Street City, which is where I joined him. And so it was very tiny when I joined, and we worked from there. As far as me getting into it is concerned, once again, this was a result of great research and foresight. I was going to be an engineer, and I'd organised a cadetship, and it was all go, everything was all organised, and then suddenly at the last minute, it fell through. And I thought, I don't have plan B. So I went to Dad and said, "Look, can I work at the warehouse for a few months until I get my head together and figure out what I want to do with my life?" Well, I never left, never got around to leaving. I really enjoyed the warehouse work, and then I enjoyed sales and marketing and buying and all those things. And so I just started from there and stayed where I was, doing what I enjoyed doing.
Good, amazing story. I mean, I only found out recently. I knew Bob ran a lot of businesses around the country, but I only recently found out that you started with that one, which is quite amazing. Now, here's another question, Bob. I mentioned earlier with the audience that you're an active Christian and you follow biblical principles. However, I want to challenge you, mate. How difficult do you find integrating this in business? Because there's people that perceive, oh, yeah, being Christian and being in business, that's a conflict of interest. For example, how do you got to go 5 people. That's not very loving. So how do you answer that one, Bob? Bob loves a challenge.
That's a knotty question, Stan. But look, as far as I'm concerned, as a Christian, I like to read the Bible and what Jesus did and follow his story. And so, I look at what he did, and he didn't let people walk all over him. He was a guy with a lot of strength of character. He talked about things the way they were, and despite the consequences, which eventually were pretty horrendous, he was prepared to say it like it was. And so he didn't let people walk all over him. I don't think we're called to let people walk all over us either. We're called to be humble, but not to let people simply dominate us for the sake of it. So, I think that's the important bit.
Good answer.
But also, I think when you have to put somebody off, if it doesn't hurt, if it doesn't really hurt, you've lost your way somewhere, I reckon. Yeah. And now that may not help the person who's being fired, but unless it really hurts, it doesn't actually say much for you, I think. You've got to know that it's important to them.
Yeah.
But on the logical side, on the purely pragmatic side, I always rationalise it this way. There's a contract of employment between an employee and an employer. If an employee terminates that contract unilaterally, then what you have to do is to go out, you have to buy a present, and you have to say a nice speech, and you have to say nice words and shake them by the hand, and then you have to wish them the very best for the future. Now that may be, despite the fact that that person leaving might cost you tens of thousands of dollars. If they actually go and work for someone else and try and actively do you harm by taking business away from you, it could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. But you still have to smile and shake them by the hand and say, thank you so much for everything you've done, all the very best for the future. But if an employer terminates a contract of employment unilaterally, you're the dirtiest rat that ever walked the earth. You see, it's just not fair. So when I rationalise it logically, I think, well, hang on, who's terminating this relationship here, and is that okay? So I think you have to look at it both spiritually, in my case, but also purely pragmatically.
What about, Bob, what are some of the challenges? I mean, in Star Pharmacy Group, we oversee a group of 36 stores around the country. You have to oversee nearly 100 businesses. What are some of the challenges and obstacles that have come up that made, what are some of the learnings you've had as you resolved them that made a huge difference?
Yeah, look, there's been a lot of challenges, obviously. There always is in business, and every business has their own challenges. And ours is no exception, but it's probably been no harder for us than anyone else. I think perseverance is one of the most important lessons that I've learned. It's really easy to give up because things get too hard. Somebody said to me the other day, giving up because of a few obstacles is a bit like slashing the other 3 tyres when you get a flat tyre. I thought that was pretty good. Perseverance is really, really important. But you've also got to know when to cut your losses.
Yeah.
You can't be so obstinate that it drives you under. You've got to be prepared to cut your losses. But most of the time, 9 times out of 10, perseverance is important. In the early 90s, we were going through a really, really, really tough time. We were nearly broke. We were struggling for cash, and it was a really tough time. And I, at that stage, set a goal of turning over $100 million by the year 2000. And we were doing something around 25, I think, at the time. And I was very strongly criticised for setting that goal. People said, you're an idiot, you're a fool. You're not only a fool, you're irresponsible. You're going to hurt yourself, you're going to hurt other people. You shouldn't do such a stupid thing. You'll never be able to do it, you'll never be able to fund it. So look, don't even bother. Anyway, I set that goal. I fell out with one of my closest associates over that. He thought I was a fool. But in the year 2000, we clicked over 100 million. And I'm a huge believer in written goal setting. If anyone wants to have a chat later about written goal setting, happy to have a chat about that, but it really, 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 really works. You know that.
Yeah,
it
definitely,
does.
definitely.
And so I really think that setting a goal and then persevering has been one of the big lessons that I've learned. Another really big lesson I think is more on the practical side of things, which is cash. They can't say cash is king, it's a pretty glib sort of statement, but I found unless you have really good reporting, really good forecasting and a really good understanding of management accounting, and I don't mean, double entry bookkeeping, I mean proper accounting. Unless you have an understanding of that, you're really going to struggle. And as I said earlier, we were running out of cash badly in the early 90s, and I woke up one day and I said, I'm not going to live like this anymore. I'm just not going to keep on running out of cash, being embarrassed when creditors ring. And so from that day on, we focused on growing the cash side. We developed reporting, which was very good at forecasting how the cash was going to be. And since that time, we've been through numerous potential cash flow crises, but never actually been through one, because we could predict that it was going to happen and take action before it happened, not when it happened. And to me, with cash, if you can predict when you're going to get a problem and then do something about it first, you don't go through that terrible time of, like we did, having a stack of checks and saying, now who's the most deserving case? And sending out that one first.
And for those people that, the building industry, there can be some really big fluctuations. Is that right, Bob? You could fluctuate from 1 year to a boom year to a down year.
Yeah.
What, 20% differences? I don't know. How huge is
it's just enormous.
Enormous difference. Yeah.
And it's very hard to fluctuate your overheads in our business.
Yeah.
Like you've got a lot of fixed overheads.
Yeah.
Whereas others can perhaps flex their overheads. But yeah, the building industry goes up and down like crazy, as Bob knows. And Bob and I have dealt in business in the building industry for many, many years. I think over 30 years now. And Bob has the inenviable role of being my longest customer.
Wow.
Of anyone. And so it's great to see you, Bob.
We've got 2 Bobs worth this morning.
That's right. I've learned a lot from Bob over the years. It's been a fantastic relationship, and I think perseverance generates long-term relationships, and long-term relationships are very important with customers. You can become friends. You can be loyal to your customers. You can be loyal to your own staff, and you can be loyal to your suppliers. It's very, very important to generate loyalty, and that's the other, I think, a lesson that I've learned that is worth passing on today, that loyalty is really, really important, because if you give loyalty, you'll always get loyalty back in return. Sometimes.
Yes. Most times.
I think the big lesson to learn with loyalty is don't let the experience with some people sour you for everyone else. Just because somebody knifes you in the back doesn't mean to say that you should treat everybody as if they're going to knife you in the back. Okay, be cautious, be circumspect in everything you do.
Yeah.
but don't assume that everybody's going to knife you in the back, because they're not. If you're loyal to them, they'll be loyal to you most times. 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, they will be loyal back. Somebody said to me the other day, what about Gen Y? They're not loyal. They're not loyal. They won't do the right thing. And I got to thinking about that and thought, no, that's wrong. Employers at the moment, what do we do with Gen Y? We give them casual jobs. Is that giving loyalty? That's not loyalty. That's not giving loyalty. How can employers expect loyalty from Gen Y when they don't give Gen Y loyalty back in return? I find Gen Y is just as loyal as any other gen. You know, they are. It's just that they're not getting the loyalty from employers, and I think that's pretty sad. I reckon they get a really bad rap.
Gen Y, they've had a reputation, of being non-loyal. We've always found that you create a workplace of meaning for them. They want meaning in their work these days, a lot more meaning. Outlook for SA, Bob. The media is either bleak or dull at best. The closure of GM, unemployment with the worst state of unemployment, state debt, all these issues. How do you, what's your recipe for ongoing success? What's your strategy? What's your mindset? There's a lot of bleakness out there.
There is a lot of bleakness out there, and if you read the newspapers and watch the TV, you'll probably close the doors and throw the key away. But honestly, I reckon it's terrific. I reckon it's absolutely fabulous that all these people are going around so down-mouth about things, because while they're going around to each other and talking about how negative things are, people like the ones in this room, the people like entrepreneurs and people with a bit of positivity, we're going to go out and get their business. And it's fantastic. They're so distracted by being negative and trying to get government handouts that we're going to go in and we're going to grab their business and take it away, and they're going to say, see, I told you so, it is terrible. And this is one of the best times to go and win new business. I find when things go down, your competitors actually ascribe their decline in business to the decline in the economy. And so they blame the economy, not their competitor. So, you go out, you take their business, they say, oh, it's because of the economy. And then when it turns around, they say, hey, hang on, my market share's gone down. How did that happen? Well, it's because we were smart and we went out and got the business while they were looking the other way. I reckon it's terrific.
It's back to multiplying your talents, isn't it, Bob?
Absolutely,
Good positive. I like it.
Got to be positive.
Take 5 for 10. So, how have you personally benefited, Bob, from, I know that you have a mentor, I know you've mentioned Jim Rohn, you've always been into personal development. How have you benefited from mentoring, personal development and in business?
I've been really, really fortunate, Stan, because I've had some really good mentors. The first one was my dad. We used to work together. We worked together for many, many years until he, I think, gave up in the mid-80s. And I just wouldn't let him retire because I knew that was keeping him young. But he and I used to drive home together from work each night. And on the way, he didn't know he was mentoring me. I didn't know he was mentoring me. But he was. On the way home, he just talked and talked and talked. I drove, he talked. And so it meant that he was able to impart all those years of wisdom that he had accumulated to me without me even knowing it. So that was fantastic. I was so privileged to have my dad spend a lot of time with me just chatting about things. I also was very, very fortunate, privileged, blessed, because I lived in a period of time, I matured in a period of time through the 70s and 80s when people like Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, people like that were around the place and actually coming by through Adelaide and giving talks. And I was so blessed to be able to attend a Jim Rohn seminar back in around 78, I think it was. Adrian, I think you were at that one too. And what a life life-changing experience that was. Absolutely amazing. Turned my world upside down. And he was a man who was full of wisdom. He wasn't really a motivator, although he was very motivating. He was a wise business coach. And since that time, I've got every CD that I can possibly grab of his, and I've turned my car into a travelling university. And if I have to drive to Melbourne, for example, the weekend seminar usually goes into that one. So I take Jim Rohn's weekend seminar, usually for a Melbourne trip, put the first CD in on and drive off. And by the time I've driven around Melbourne for a while and come back, I'm usually listening to the last CD in the series by the time I drive down the freeway. And I keep a little tape recorder, not a digital recorder, a tape recorder, because they're so much easier to use in a car. And as I'm hearing things, I'm making notes. And then when I get to where I'm going at night, I'll replay those notes, write them all down, get a series of actions, whack them into Outlook, and then I know that I'm going to do them. So I really think that I've had tremendous benefit from my dad as a mentor, and from people like Jim Rohn as a mentor, admittedly not person to person, but also through tech that you mentioned earlier. Adrian Gearing and others at Tech have really helped me and mentored me. I've learned far more through Tech than I did at any tertiary educational level, miles more, because it's practical.
Yeah.
So, I've had some great mentors.
Same here. It's the last question of the morning, Bob. As a result of your ongoing success, everybody has something they want to do. A mission, a passion, you've probably got a number of them, I'd imagine. Maybe share with us what you want to do to make the world a better place.
Stan, I think it's up to each one of us individually to decide what we want to do. Some people interpret success in one way, some people interpret success in another way. I think we are not given the right to judge others in this world. We should not be judging people, and the world is full of judgment. The media is full of judgment. They shouldn't do this, criticise that, criticise this. But I believe that success should be determined by a person. Like, is success achieving something that you set out to do? Well, probably not, because when I started with my dad at 18, I did not expect to end up where I am. So that wasn't a yes, let's sit back and gaze at the navel for a while and then pontificate that I'm going to arrive in that particular position. No, that's not it at all. And I think success is more about achieving something really good, something better than you would have normally been expected to achieve with the resources at your disposal. So a person who has maybe very, very limited opportunities and very limited maybe intelligence or skills, they can be success in their own way. And so I think everybody needs to then say, okay, so from that success, what are we going to do? What am I going to do? How am I going to help? Am I going to share with other people? I like to do that. I like to sit with people and share with them. Am I going to give away lots of money? Well, that's probably that person's own, their own business. Whether they give away money or whether they don't give away money. And I'm not going to judge them one way or the other. I think it's a fantastic thing to share. But hey, that's everybody's own responsibility. So I think success, everybody needs to decide on what their success is, and then they need to decide on what they are going to do with that success. Are they going to share, or are they going to keep it to themselves? I think it's far more rewarding to share.
Yeah. Even Jim Rohn used to say, when you share, you actually create more in your life.
Correct. Yeah, you do.
It's good. I thought maybe if anybody has a question, I mean, Bob will be at the desk down the front till about 9 a.m. later. But if I thought we're open to the floor, if anybody has a question they'd like to ask Bob, yes.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for changing my family's life around. It was at a time when my dad lost the hardware because big business grew across the road, and you gave him a job. And as you know, as we discussed earlier, opened up the first Melbourne store.
Yeah.
What I'd like to ask you is, one of the things that I've watched him do in the time, staff owned your goals. They were their goals
Yes.
too. And so I'm glad that you actually mentioned that. In terms of community groups, do you have partnerships with community groups or anything like that in terms of supporting local South Australian entrepreneurs and business people? Or would you consider it?
Look, we consider anything that's put to us. Obviously, you've got to look at things pragmatically. And I tend to believe that when you're in a business, you either say, okay, this is a donation, or this is an investment in something that you're going to get a financial return on. So it goes under advertising. So you say, okay, I'm going to sponsor this because I'm going to get publicity out of it, and I'm going to do this. And we're going to get more back than what we put in. That's called advertising, and it should be judged on exactly the same way as you do putting a television ad on or something of that nature. But then there's the donation side, and you say, okay, now we support this and this and this and this, but that's money we're giving away. And so you'll find that some businesses, especially public companies, they won't give away a lot of that sort of thing without a reasonable amount of publicity, because they've got shareholders. And they say to themselves, well, are we allowed to give away the money of our shareholders? Legally, that's a bit of a knotty point. They're obligated to make the maximum amount for their shareholders. So you really need to figure out where that business is coming from.
What about if it involved no exchange of money?
But once again, you need to determine what the investment is. You know, whether it's time or whatever. But I really think that everybody should be always open to every idea. And I think one of the problems in business and in our lives these days is that we tend to be so directed. A lot of this is because of our education system. Everybody has to think the same. You go to university and you must have those answers. Not these answers, those answers, and no other. And so we have a real problem in not thinking outside the square. I'm really fortunate that I wasn't put into that square, so I don't have to think in it.
I had to unlearn a lot of my learnings as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's good. Question, yes.
Thank you for your presentation this morning. It's been very enlightening. You mentioned that some of the best training you had was tech training.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that means?
I'm sorry, I should have explained that earlier. TEC is the Executive Connection, which is an organisation which I've belonged to for quite a few years. Basically, it's a group of CEOs who get together once a month and have a speaker, a resource of some sort, and then discuss mutual problems or the problems that one has. And I've got the privilege of belonging to an amazing group of people who the theme is tell the truth in love. And so it means that you have to really expose yourself to being told. And believe me, some of these people are told in no uncertain manner, in a very direct way. And Adrian's laughing because Adrian runs this group. That's Adrian over there, if you want to talk to him about
anything,
that.
Adrian.
But
You come out loved but bruised.
Yeah, that's right. You come out loved but bruised. And
I love you, bang. I love you.
but it's astonishing. You take along an issue to this group, and within no time flat, they've actually got underneath that and found that that wasn't the issue at all. It was actually this over here, and you'd better get your act together. And it's very, very good. It's quite amazing. And every month you get to sit with the chairman of the group for 2 hours a week and he mentors you. Absolutely incredible. Wonderful experience.
Question down there.
That was fantastic, Bob. I really enjoyed hearing your story, and you obviously relate, or elaborate on the question really well. And Stan, fantastic interview. I thought that was great because that takes two. My question, I think, relates to the first question in terms of thinking outside the square. We know that you have to change your business with changing times. The internet is obviously a classic example of the way that's come in, and you've got to embrace it, otherwise you're behind. Can you give an example of the way that you may have changed your business over the years?
We've always been early adopters. I'm a bit of a tech head in some ways when it's going to give us benefit, and so we actually bought a computer back in about 1974, and it was as big as a large desk. And we only had maybe a dozen or 15 people working for us, and we actually went out and bought a computer and ran our accounts on it. And so I think you've got to be one step ahead of the group, probably 2 steps ahead of the group, on the leading edge, but not the bleeding edge. If you're on the bleeding edge, sometimes you're going to really get hurt, and sometimes I've been on the bleeding edge and not realised it. Talking computers again, in the 80s, I was visited by AWA Computers at that stage and said, look, we'd like to sell you a computer system. And I said, well, this one we've got at the present moment is doing just fine. Unless I can get online, real-time, point of sale, then I'm not interested. Well, I didn't realise what I was asking for. I'd read about this sort of thing, but I didn't realise that it didn't actually exist in hardly any companies. So I was asking for this ridiculous thing, and they came back and said, yeah, we've worked out a way of doing it. And so we dived into that and nearly lost his shirt, but it actually worked in the end, and we were able to jump ahead of the marketplace. Likewise, in more recent times, once again technical, but we created a whole visualisation system whereby people can walk into a shop and see a big screen, and they can choose a tile, scan it, and it appears up in a room on this big screen. And we've run them out into nearly all of the shops. That's been a terrific thing, and we actually created that ourselves in our own internal computer department. So yeah, you have to keep jumping ahead, but not too far.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. Any more questions? Bob will be here till about 9 a.m. Now, as we wrap it up, Natasha, you got something for Bob? Yeah, put your jogging shoes on. I want to thank you, Bob, for coming this morning and sharing with us. I know you have a very busy schedule and always travelling around the country, but it's great to have you here. I can tell that the audience has really taken in what you've said this morning, and everyone, I trust, has taken a good point away. So with that, thank you very much. Natasha has something. Bob's into cars. You see this nice Jag out there? Bob's taking it to Malala.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, so give Bob a round of applause. Thanks, Bob. Come on, Bob. So let's.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. So Bob will be on Malala tomorrow morning. Is it tomorrow morning, Bob? Racing the Jag. So success is not to be pursued. It's to be attracted by the person you become. Learning is the beginning of wealth. Searching and learning is part of the miracle process. And always remember the magic of thinking big. Remember that perception is about changing the way you see things, because when you see things differently, you create new opportunities. And remember to always multiply your talents. Now, I know there's many people in business here this morning, and there's many people that maybe want to get in business, or there's many people that run a business and would want to run it better. I just want to go briefly through some of the journey that I went through in business, and recall how I learned or went through the various hurdles of getting into business. I started many years ago. I had no idea about business. I mean, when I say no idea, I mean zip. You know, I lived in a low socioeconomic environment, and basically the only business person I ever knew was a distant relative who owned a business, but we never saw him anyway. Anyway, to now running with my partner Peter. Where's Peter Feet back there? We run a group of businesses around the country with a turnover over 130 million. It's pretty good for an SA-based enterprise. A lot of people I've met over the years have gone and done MBAs, and they pay like 30 to 50,000 to go and do an MBA, and to learn to think outside the square, which is what Bob mentioned earlier. How do you think outside the square and get better results? So the outcome is always results, but not everybody has the time and the money to do an MBA. So I'll go through some fears that I went through. The first fear was the fear of getting into business. Right? It's the fear of getting into business. And I had to change my thinking to get a courageous way of thinking, as well as understand all the important bits like, you know, being around the right people, but it's really the thinking. And as I look in the audience today, it's quite likely a few people here that think, geez, I've always thought about getting into business, but I've always had this hesitation, this uncertainty. And so a few of you are in this embryonic stage where you need to break through the terror barrier, where you make a decision. The second thing was, all right, you get through that fear. The second thing was getting into business. You know, setting it up and getting the money and paying the wages, paying the rent, making a profit, and learning to handle competitors. And I was very fortunate in I had somebody to hold my hand when I went into business and help me smooth over the bumps. Now, it's quite likely a few people that are ready to jump and get into business, but they don't have someone to hold their hand to help them. And we're going to, Peter and I are going to be talking as we go through the morning about a business masterclass. We're going to run a business masterclass, which is going to be impactful for people whether they want to get into business or are in business. Third was noticing, this is a big one for me, noticing that years had gone by and I'd gone into business to have lifestyle, to have time, to have freedom, to have travel, and I wasn't doing it. I was caught up. You know what I mean? You're caught up. You think, my God, I'm caught up. And then I had to work out, how do you have a business or businesses and get it to work without me? And I remember somebody just sort of shook me up one day and goes, Stan, he goes, a business is a commercial enterprise that should run profitably without you. Whether you work in it or not is your choice. You know, it's your choice. It's not an obligation. It's your choice whether you decide to work in it. And so that really shook me up. And how do I create a business on autopilot? How do I systemize it so I can choose how much time I want to be there? And I'm sure there's many people in the room here that are working perhaps too much in their business, and their business is not working for them. So how do you work on your business, and in doing so create not only the money but the lifestyle? It's always a challenge. For those people that want to learn that, come along to Business Masterclass. The fourth stage was, the next fear was, how does one run multiple businesses? Because it's great being in one, and you could get out of it and work on it, and you could still step in it and turn it around when it runs badly, and get out of it again and watch it and set up KPIs and set, do the team trainings and everything. But how do you run a next one and a next one and the next one? And so that was the next challenge. And it involved becoming very good at strategic thinking. And so now the process of leveraging multiple businesses and still having a lifestyle was the next challenge, and that was a whole new world. And I know there's many of you in the room here who want to achieve that. In fact, I've had people approach me, how do you do that? Now that stage, I must say, for me, was the most exciting stage. It was very, very exciting to get to that point. I was talking, where's Peter Salerno? I was talking with Peter Salerno the other day, and he goes to me at a story. He goes, there's two guys, similar ages, and they went into truck freighting. And they started like 10 years ago. Now, 10 years later, person A has still got the same old beat-up truck. Person B has got 10 trucks, new trucks, and he's making a whole lot of money and has got a great lifestyle. Now, they've both been through that. It's in the same state, same economic cycle, same interest rates, same everything. Why is it that one person in the same period of time can do this and the other person can't? And that's the question that I always ask, how is it possible? And for those of you that want to learn more and more how, come along to Business Masterclass. You see, many of us hear the same thing over and over and over about how to do things, but few of us actually do the things that we hear. And so we need to always invest money and time into our business life. Now, there's many challenges, as Bob mentioned earlier. You go through many, many challenges in business, and so you need to keep educating yourself. Now, I mentioned that when I was thinking of getting into business, I was frightened. I lacked knowledge, I had no money, no contacts. I was working, and I had no time to even go and learn about business, no time to do any personal development to change my thinking. But when I was working hard in the business, there was a lack of time, there were staff issues, etc. There were so many things to contend with. And we all have these moments that just change us. And I remember one moment was I was at a wedding, I was at church, and we were going to go to the reception. And I got a phone call from a large corporate client, because I had the one small business, and they were so big and so important to me that I had to find a way to go to this client and do a delivery before I went to the reception. And I thought to myself, I can't do this anymore. This is ruling my life. Business is controlling my life. And so I then got more coaching, more education, read more books, went to more courses, and I still remember the day walking into that corporate client and handing back the keys. Go, I'm not looking after you anymore. She goes, what? But we're worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. No, I'm not looking after you anymore. I'm sorry. I've got a lifestyle to address here. And so it took me 6 months, and I had a plan, and I built my business back up, and to design it so it suited my life, because I wasn't going to have business rule my life. And so, and of course the next fear was the fear of letting go, to enjoy things, and it was always, what if I go broke? What if my business is broke? What if my customers leave me? What if this? And I had to get past that. And I heard a wisdom that shifted my thinking, and it said, you can always make more money, but you cannot make more time. So you've got to learn to enjoy your time. Business is your vehicle for enjoying time. So all these issues that were holding me back were not really the issues, they were really symptoms. And the symptoms were I wasn't keeping my education up to learn more and more about how to leverage and run my business correctly. I wasn't enlightening myself in business knowledge. And so I would go to courses, 2, 3, 4 day courses. And to this very day, as Bob mentioned, I still devote 1 full day a month to a business class. And I have done so for the last 10 years, where I will not compromise. As long as I'm in business, I will keep educating myself 1 full day a month. And I thank Adrian for his ongoing guidance. So I'd like for those who want to become masters of business, where the business works for you, to continue the journey together with us by learning the skill set in how to take wherever you are to the next level. Myself and Peter have the privilege of going through all the pain of going through every step that you could possibly go through. And we believe that the power of immersion in business education is transformational if you want to achieve a lifestyle. So I invite everybody here to come along to our 2-day immersion process, right? 2 days. It's 2 full days of gaining insights into not only the way you think, but the way you manage, and the way you plan. One of the many initiatives that I've taken over the years is to be part of this, ongoing business knowledge. And Bob Beaumont happens to be in a business class with me, where there's a transaction of billions of dollars in the room every year. Now, the Business Masterclass will have a number of topics. We're going to have things like checklists into what makes good business, checklists into making, how do you minimise risk when you buy a business, how do you streamline a takeover of a business, how do you create a business plan, how do you decide what you should do, what you should delegate, how do you recruit extraordinary staff. There's ways where you can actually recruit with 90% accuracy that you will get the right person. There's an old wisdom we use: hire slowly, fire quickly. If you do it properly, you very rarely won't have to fire, because you're always hiring correctly with the system. In other words, how to use round pegs for round holes when you bring people in. How do you get your team to focus on a vision and how to transmute that vision into everybody. How to create the ideal team of skills. You know, we've all got different hats. How do you go from having the HR hat, the BDM hat, the IT hat, the bookkeeping hat, all these hats? How do you go from having all these hats to giving them all away, so that you're just left with the hat you want to wear? Because it's very confusing having to wear many, many hats. And how to outsource, one of the things we've done recently is developed a team of people in Manila. We've got a group of 10 people there that we employ. So we can outsource. We still have our team here, but there's benefits now around the world with the internet. How do you outsource? How do you expand safely and effectively and protect your downside? So Peter and I, we regularly get asked to catch up for coffees. And after a while, I've got this big list of coffees I've got to get to. And you just can't get to them. You know, for the last year, I thought, I used to be able to do this. I used to be able to catch up for coffees with everybody. And now Adrian's laughing. It's like, I'm thinking, right, let's just, I said to Peter, let's just do 2 days. We'll run like a coffee thing for 2 days, right? Everyone come along to a business masterclass for 2 days. We'll do all this content and we'll answer a whole heap of questions. And we're only doing one of these because it's not easy to get me and Peter in the same room for 2 whole days. And so I recommend, I think there's a brochure attached, put a brochure in there for you. Who should attend? There's a little list there. If you've got a small or medium business, or you're self-employed, or you want to start a business, want to grow an existing business, if you're interested in franchising or expanding, if you want to build a high-performance culture, actually Peter and I are going to share that next month as well, how to build a high-performance culture, where you get a very, very high engagement rate. And that's what we've done at Star Farmers together with Tim, our CEO, who's here this morning as well. How do you create some work-life balance? How do you use your business to create wealth? How do you create money in your business and transfer it into wealth vehicles so you can multiply your net worth? How do you systemize and get more free time? How do you get more productive? So we're going to be covering a whole lot of things in those 2 days. So I encourage you, for those that want to book in today, early bird right, $998. Hand it to a team member, book yourself in 2 days. I think it's late June. Tasha's got the dates. For those of you that are on the fence, just register your interest. Register interest. I'm interested, want to find out more. Hand it in to a team member and they'll be in touch. So I'll see you all in the June Business Masterclass. And also look forward to seeing you next month at the June Breakfast, how to create a peak performance culture that delivers bottom line to your business, as well as creates a great environment to work in. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed this morning. Thank you once again to Bob. Always a pleasure to catch up with Bob. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, a fantastic month, and I hope that it's prosperous for every single person in this room. Thank you very much.
Okay, take the time now to jot down those 3 points in your diary, schedule it, take action, and make it real. If you've been given this video from a friend, I encourage you, get on our website and check out Breakfast at the Next Level subscription. You'll get all sorts of resources like this video, a transcription, and many other resources. I look forward to having breakfast with you next month at Breakfast at the Next Level.